Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the number one liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings broadcast, and I am your once again candidate for Father of the Year host, Rick. So tonight I've got a couple of things going on, and I'm very excited about them, actually. So before I get into those, though, let me go ahead and thank you, my subscribers, my wonderful subscribers, for joining me on this Saturday night. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your being here because, of course, without you, this would just be me talking into the interwebs of the ethosphere. So obviously, I need your help too, number one, in order to make sure that the broadcast, of course, gets passed around. If you are hearing this for the first time, and especially I'd like to say thank you to anyone who is listening to this, the audio portion on Spreaker. I just started partnering with Spreaker, and so what I am doing is I'm actually streaming both places. I've got one going to YouTube, which is the video and the audio portion, and the other is the audio portion going directly to Spreaker. So I am going to have to pay attention to what it is that I am saying and doing, only from the standpoint of the fact that I'm trying to incorporate two different types of audiences here. We have the video audience, which of course is right here in front of me. And then of course, we're going to have the audio audience as well. So this is going to be a little bit of fun. This is, I'm trying this out for the first time. I'm going to see what happens. And of course, being a live broadcast and a recording of a live broadcast, anything pretty much can go here. Second thing is I have been working on something with a couple of partners, and I am extremely excited about this. But wait a minute. I got one more thing before I announce that. I want to say, hey, if you like the show, if you want to support the show, a couple of things. First of all, at the end of the Spreaker broadcast, there will be a couple of ads. I have no control over those ads. I just know that they are going to show up. There's going to be two of them. So I would appreciate if you would just listen to them because it is a monetization kind of thing. I do get a kickback for having those on the podcast portion or the audio portion of the stream. The other thing is I've updated the store link. So now if you want to get some fantastic Whiskey Musings logo gear, you can go to store.whiskeymusings.online and you'll find the store there. Whiskey is spelled in the American version with the EY, and it is all one word. So store.whiskeymusings.online, and you can score some great logo gear like gaiters and masks and sweatshirts and t-shirts and leggings. I've got stuff for men. I've got stuff for women. I've got, mugs and phone case, a couple of phone cases on there. So I'd appreciate if you'd at least go and take a look and see if there's something there that you would like to purchase. And of course, all the proceeds go directly to the show and go directly to supporting in particular, the call-in feature that I do have on the program. Now, the next thing is I have been working with a couple of partners. I already kind of mentioned this. This has been essentially about a 3 to 4 year stint. And we are so close. We are so close. We are going to be launching the True Grit Radio Network. And basically what this is it is a internet radio station that is going to be focused on things like American rock, American blues, and American country. It's not going to be your typical station in terms of the idea of it's going to be, playing top 40 hits or anything. We are actually trying to get artists who haven't quite broken into the I'll say the higher levels, the higher echelons. It's gritty, it's raw, it's unfiltered. It is our version of getting the stars before they're stars. Setups. So it's going to be great. I'm just absolutely excited about it, and I'll give you some more information about that. But once again, it is the True Grit Radio Network that is going to be started up at internet radio station. Once I get some more, we get a little closer and that kind of thing, you'll be getting some more information there. All right. So tonight, we have a special celebration tomorrow here in America, and it has to deal with, you have Mother's Day, and, in May, and everybody, of course, they all love their mothers, even the people that are, in prison and things like that. It's kind of a joke about within the American culture with regards to, even the most hardened prison criminal, loves their mother and will do anything for their mother and that kind of thing. Fathers generally tend to take kind of a back seat, I guess, in a way to that in terms of traditionally, the father figure, at least in the American subculture, has kind of taken a hit in the stance that, they usually are portrayed in some cases as being very abusive, very strong, very, very over domineering, I guess, and there's been a lot of talk about things like, with criminals in particular, how whether or not they were fatherless when they were younger. I know there's a bunch of studies and things like that with regards to fathers and how they affect the growing up of the children. We're going to go through a couple of those today or tonight, but what I wanted to kind of mention is with Father's Day, it doesn't matter whether it's a biological father, whether it is a grandfather, whether it's a, stepfather or even an uncle, just a male role model in your life that you can honor with on the day. I mean, it would be great if it's your dad, but I know not every dads are perfect. Dads are very imperfect. Not every dad is perfect. There could be a strong male role model in your life, and it doesn't matter whether you're a boy or a girl or anything in between. That's having a strong parental figure who stands in as the father figure. That's what's most important. And you should take some time tomorrow to at least give that person a call, talk to them, say hello, that kind of thing. Because fathers traditionally for the longest of time have had, at least here in America, have had, they've taken their knocks. I mean, back when I was growing up, as an example, the idea was that the father didn't like, changing the diapers and dealing with family issues. That was all on the mother to do. And that was a traditional sense. Especially when it came to things like discipline, you would have the comment about, oh, well, your father, wait till your father gets home. Wait until your father gets home. Kind of an idea with the whole disciplinary aspect of the father. And the fathers were typically demonstrated stereotypically to be very stoic, very quiet, not very involved. They were the ones that left the house, made the money, came home, they drank beer, they, wanted to watch the television, they wanted to watch the game. They couldn't really get involved with kids' lives. And what's happened with a lot of this throughout the ages, throughout the last, several decades, is they've actually been doing studies about fathers and about, how these fathers affect their children's lives. How do we get into, as fathers, how do we get into our kids' lives and make a difference with our kids? And, I'm going to be honest with you. When I became a father, I was scared to death. I wanted to make sure that everything that I did was a positive outflow for my children, that being a father to me was very important. It was very kind of eye opening. It was, in a way, it was jaw dropping. I was there for both of my kids, and I was, fortunate enough to be able to be there. I almost missed my daughter's birth, but I was fortunate enough to be there. I was fortunate enough to be able to partake in that. That the creation or the bringing of life into this world, and that made a profound effect on me as an individual. And I wanted to make sure that I understood that this was something that I had a hand in, and I wasn't just a sperm donor. I mean, I wasn't just a baby daddy, and that was it. I mean, I wanted to have an effect on my children's lives. And one in particular, my firstborn was a son. And I was very, very proud of that. Fortunately, my second one came was a daughter. So I have one of each. And they are both beautiful children. They are both they're growing up. They're growing faster than I can imagine. And I am very proud of everything that they have achieved so far. And I've constantly made comments in the past that, I've held a bunch of titles in my life, and one of them, which to me is one of the most important ones, is the title of father or dad. And, so I'm, my upbringing, my growing up, my biological father and my mother decided to divorce very early on in my life, and she went on and remarried. My stepfather and I had our ups and downs and had our rocky moments. But to be honest with you, overall, he tried to raise me the best that he could. Both of them have since passed on, so I can't necessarily talk to them tomorrow on that day. And unfortunately, all of my grandfathers have passed as well. So, pretty much I'm at the point now where I'm the what you could consider the patriarchal head of the family. And, again, like I said, I'm not trying to paint this as like, this is my life, but there's a lot of things when I look back, there's a lot of things that I think about in terms of, the role models that they played, the examples that they set. And one of the things that I remember most often with my stepfather always was whenever I would go and I would do something, if I ended up needing help or needing some assistance, I would ask him, I'd say, hey, can you give me a hand? Can you help me out? And, although it was very frustrating at the time, looking back on it, I do kind of understand where he was coming from. His comment always was, well, what would you do if I wasn't here? And that created a situation that set up a situation where I learned how to do a lot of things on my own without the assistance of somebody else. Now that's a positive in the one hand. In the other hand, it's also a negative because more often than not, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to do things on my own without asking for assistance, when asking for assistance would make something quicker or better off if I were to do that. But it instilled a bit of independence in me. And I appreciated that now. I appreciate it being at the age that I am. And I did try to pass some of that down the line. But at the same time, I also realized that a little overuse of that can be detrimental, in terms of in the development of someone that's coming along. I mean, asking for help is definitely not a problem. It's not unmasculine to ask for help. It is not unmasculine to require assistance on things. Sometimes you just have to do it. I unfortunately at times I have trouble asking, but eventually it gets around, much to the chagrin of my wife. She doesn't like it when I try and do things completely on my own and never ask for help. I have had to ask for help in the past, and it's tough, but I've gotten to the point where I've been able to do that. So Other than that, in terms of the development, we can go and take a look at. And this first thing I want to share to you. So I did go on the internet and I took a look around and I tried to find some articles. A lot of them, there's a lot of information out there now about the positive influence that fathers can have in someone's life. I mean, and keep in mind, it's not just a baby daddy who, takes care of the bills. This is a person who is active in a child's life during their development. And one particular article does talk about where it's active. But I want to bring this up. I do want to, I'm going to take a look here real quick. I just want to check and see if anybody's making any comments on the Spreaker stream or anything like that. But let me go ahead and bring this up now. Let me share. And don't worry, for those that are on the audio portion of the stream, I will definitely be reading these, and I've got to actually see it in my window. So here we go. All right. So this first one, this first article, it comes from Psychology Today, and this is the importance of fathers, and is Father's Day real? And this was penned in June 23rd of 2011 by Dita M. Oliker, PhD. Now, she titled a book, or she penned a book called The Long Reach of Childhood. Apparently, you can take a look, you can look her up. But one of the things that the article talks about is about the world changing, radically changing, to change with, and this is a quote from the book, the world began to radically change with social, economic, and technical advances of the 20th century. And with those changes came a basic change in the structure and function of the family, with a consequent shift in the authority of the father. His influence was increasingly seen as minor, even negligible, and his importance was defined by how well he provided for the family. Now, that's, again, when I was growing up, that was kind of the thing. The father was the breadwinner. The mother took care of the home and made sure that the kids, got fed, got off to school, helped with homework, things of that nature. And this is fairly common for somebody who grew up in the 70s and 80s, over the course of time, I would think. But a little bit further down in the article, they talk about how things can change. And one of the things that they're talking about is that there is no question that fathers do play an important part in their children's lives. Again, I'm quoting from the article. The majority of studies affirm that an involved father can play a crucial role, particularly in the cognitive, behavioral, and general health and well-being areas of a child's life. Having a positive male role model helps an adolescent boy develop positive gender role characteristics, and adolescent girls are more likely to form positive opinions of men and are better able to relate to them when parented by an involved father. It is generally accepted under most circumstances that a father's presence and involvement can be crucial to a child's healthy development as a mother's, and experiencing validation of their importance in the general parenting literature has made fathers much more conscious of their value, which in turn leads to their greater desire to be involved. Now, that kind of brings up a couple of interesting points. It's not just boys that fathers need to be able to relate to. We also, as fathers, we also need to be able to relate to girls as well. And the one of the funny stories that I have is that when my son became interested in soccer, I, of course, decided, hey, this would be a perfect outlet for my son and I to enjoy something together. Not so much that it was surrounding a sport, but the idea of being the coach and being there to be a part of his life, just such that I'm not, the one that shows up on the sidelines. I decided to dive deep. And so I started coaching. Well, there's a 5 years age difference between my two kids, and my daughter came along and she seeing her brother and everything. And of course, her brother kind of pushed her into it, I think, a little bit. But she decided that she wanted to play soccer too. And so I ended up having to coach her team as well. And I'm going to tell you that the differences in coaching a boys team and a girls team are significant, I should say. Unfortunately, I was only able to actually coach her team a couple of years. I did find another father who had daughters and was very good at coaching girls soccer. I had my own little issues with trying to teach the girls. And so for me, it was easier for me to just step down than it was to continue with the girls, even though we had 2 successful seasons. And I will never, ever look back on that with any kind of guilt or regret. I just know that for the couple of years that I was there with them, it had nothing to do with them in particular. It was more my coaching style that wasn't quite fitting, and I unfortunately wasn't able to change well enough to make it to where they would actually do a phenomenal job. I felt more better that somebody else who is familiar with coaching girls would be able to do that. But that being said, I did try to make every single game either one of my kids were playing. I attempted all the time to try and be active in their lives. And, my daughter turned over to dance. She is now she's dancing quite a bit. In fact, I was at a recital this afternoon. She is an absolute beautiful dancer. That is something that I will unfortunately never be able to get involved in because I have 2 left feet, if not more, when it comes to dancing. And, but she is absolutely gorgeous when she does it. She is very dedicated, and I definitely, try and support her as much as I can by showing up to her recitals and shows. And she's now doing a whole bunch of tours and things like that, going to different places, state and stuff like that. So I try to do the best I can to be there for her. But she has moved into a realm that I'm not all that familiar with, or and I have done a couple things in the past for the studio to help them out. When they've needed. So it's not completely from the sidelines, but I'm definitely a lot less involved as far as that goes with her. But the thing is that, men have to understand that we have a positive influence on both boys and girls. And I know that, when men start to get involved with a lot of their lives, a lot of their kids' lives, they tend to relate better to the boys than they do the girls. But it is important. In fact, there was another study, I don't have a screenshot of it, but there was another study that I had read about where a man's involvement in his daughter's life definitely influenced whether or not she would have a positive outlook in terms of her later relationships with men, and whether or not they would become more, shall we say, promiscuous versus actually meaningful. So, men, even though you don't get involved with your daughter in terms of their activities, being there, showing support, making sure that they understand that you love them and you are there to help them, I think is extremely important, as well as being there for the boys and doing, of course, the guy stuff. Now, one thing that another study or another article did bring up was the fact that, and it's the second article that I have in the show notes. It's called The Science of the Dad and the Father Effect. One thing that they did bring up is the key point is being active, being a part of that active participation. And the active participation in reality has to deal with being an active participant in their lives, not so much just the sitting on the couch and watching TV kind of parent. Again, going back to that whole idea when dad came home, he got the beer, he got to watch the football game. That was the extent of it. And, the kid was just on the floor or whatever, maybe doing homework, maybe playing with toys. You have to be active. You have to be an active participant in order for this positive communication and positive role model to actually rub off on a child. I mean, you have to be there to help them out and be a part of their lives. Beyond just their development, there also is such a thing as whether or not the child turns more toward like a criminal element or something along those lines. It gets into trouble a lot. There are tons of studies that are out there, some showing that having a positive male role model helps. And then there's a few that are out there that say, well, it's not as important as say having a mother or having a better, environment or something along those lines. But in reality, there's enough anecdotal evidence to kind of suggest that there is a potential for the positivity of the male role model to be a part of the societal values in terms of having a parent, having a father in the home. Now, the thing about it is that all of these studies, they kind of talk about having them in the home, but even most studies will definitely lean toward the idea that having the father in the home is a lot better than having them out of the home. However, the key here is to remember that fathers don't necessarily have to be in the home. If you are divorced, making the extra effort to ensure that your kids know that you want to be an active participant in their lives. And I understand, at least coming from a divorced home at one point, I understand there can be some animosity there. But as the adult and as the parent, and especially as a father, you should do your best to set aside those feelings, set aside those things, have the issues with your spouse another time. Don't take it out on the kids, because that's the other thing that becomes kind of a bit of a problem, is that when you as a father go and disappear from the kids' lives, they are totally affected because they don't understand, especially if they're young, they don't understand why daddy doesn't hang around anymore. So it's really important from a father's perspective to try and make sure that you are active in your kids' lives, that you get there, you go and you show up. And if you can't show up, at least do things like sending cards and gifts. I mean, it's no substitute for you being there, but at least you're trying to demonstrate that they are of value to you. I know that when I was growing up, my biological father, and I call him that only because of the fact that after about 7 years old, he got divorced. He and my mom got divorced. We generally stayed pretty much where kind of in the area that we grew up in. And he moved across the country and stuff. And we did see him, for a couple of weeks out of the year. And when we were together, he would spend a lot of time, in terms of trying to, I guess, buy our love. Now, that wasn't necessarily anything bad. Okay. I don't want you to think that. He would, that was the way that he expressed himself. He actually had more difficulty expressing his love and affection and spending time with somebody. To him, he was very, shall I say, monetarily oriented in a way. And so he spent a lot of time, to him, material things were more important and demonstrated his love. That was in today's terminology, that was his love language. From my perspective, I mean, I didn't really necessarily care for the things. I wanted time spent. And unfortunately that just didn't work out for me. So thankfully I had a stepfather who did spend some time with me. And I have some good memories. I also have some bad memories, because again, any relationship is not perfect, but I've also, one of his brothers in particular took me under his wing, and even his father, took me under his wing for a little bit of time when my parents had to, have me get, have a vacation or whatever. They took off on a trip, and I spent some time with his father. And so having those positive male role models in my life, that definitely affected me. And toward that end, I can tell you that as far as being effective or being affected by positive male role models, like I was saying, there's a lot of correlation, and not necessarily causation, but definitely correlation between having a father in your life and your propensity or possibility for going into less than upstanding employment or whatever. And in this particular gentleman, I'm going to just leave it here or put it out here. Denzel Washington was doing a promotion for one of his movies. And during one of the interview was on, I think you'll see the logo here because I'll get out of the way, but he was in this interview and he was asked a question by the interviewer that, you know, because the movie itself was in particular about a father who had to take things to a very high legal level. And so the question was, you know, how do we basically had to revolve around the legal system and, you know, kids in the legal system and that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and play that. The link is actually in the show notes, also on the YouTube channel, but I'm going to go ahead and, oops, I got to get rid of that. Let me get that out of the way. All right. So I'm going to play this real quick and I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way for you to be able to watch the video.
Think we've made any headway in the
I think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Little Yummy. Little Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father? Yeah. It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Yeah.
You know, like I did talk about my 3 closest friends, and they did, you know, 15 to 25. One did 28, this and that. I was the only one of the 3 that had a father in my life, even though my parents were together. But I still had a father who was a gentle man and a good example, and they didn't. We can blame the system if we want, but they didn't lock any of us up at 7.
Yeah.
We were all doing enough to get locked up at 13. My parents sent me in another direction. They didn't have anybody to help them, and they kept doing what they was doing, and the system got them. So I don't, the system is rigged, but why? All the more reason not to help it.
Okay. So in terms of Denzel's life, apparently, he had a father figure. He had someone in his life that was a parent, was a gentleman, a kind man, he mentioned, and took an active role, even though his parents were divorced, took an active role in his life and were able to push him into another direction. So, you know, as a father and looking at new fathers coming in, the best thing that I can pretty much say is don't just pass on the opportunity of a lifetime, because realistically, and I found this out, or I kind of discovered this early on, in thought about this a lot. The one thing that I have to for sure say is that regardless of what happens, whether it's, whether it's money or, status or whatever, the one thing that I can say as far as what kind of a legacy I'm going to leave this world it's not going to have anything to do with how much money I made, how much influence I gained. You know, I may affect people in terms of conversations with somebody. I may affect people by doing things like what I'm doing here, videos and things of that nature. I might affect people that way. I might affect people in conversation. But the one thing that I definitely leave this world as a legacy is my children. And it's how my children act and how my children present themselves in the world and take care of themselves after I have done my job raising them. And believe me, anyone who tells you that it's only 18 years long, that is not true. That is absolutely not true. It is not just 18 years. It is beyond that, because I certainly hope that my son and my daughter can still come and talk to me after they're adults, that they can still have a relationship with me after they're adults, God willing that I'm still on this earth, for them to. Because there are times where getting into specific situations within life, if you don't have good guidance, there may not be a positive outcome. And I'm not saying that's all the time, but there are times where yeah, there can be negative outcomes, and having somebody there to be able to bounce ideas off of and to talk to and to be, mentored per se by an individual who knows you and who knows what you've been through and how you've struggled and gotten to where you are, and maybe has some insight into what kinds of things and where to go next, who has the experience, I think is incredibly important. Even though when you're a teenager, you may not understand that when you're young. I mean, I've got to admit, I didn't grow a brain, I keep telling people, until I was 27. I mean, I was already, at that point I was already out of the military, and I was, I was getting married and that kind of thing. I was moving on with life. And I, to be honest with you, I didn't even know what the heck I was doing up until that point. And even after that point, I still was confused. And even today, I could probably say that there are times where I am still confused moving forward. But the reality of it is that if you have a positive father figure, and mothers too. I mean, I'm not trying to discount mothers, but this is a Father's Day episode. This is talking about fathers and fatherhood. There are times where even if you're a girl or a daughter and you need some advice, you can still ask your father. And that is the one hope that I have for both of my kids, is that they are able to come and express themselves to me, and especially when they become adults, we can have an adult conversation moving forward. And I've tried to be a part of their lives. I'm not saying I've been perfect, because I have had other responsibilities and that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing is that, for any kid, for any child, you don't come with a manual. You really don't. You don't come with a guide, an instruction guide. You don't come with somebody telling you exactly how things go. You have to learn on your own. You have to listen to instincts. You have to raise them in the best way you possibly can. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't work. You fall short, but other times you do. You actually make it, and you make a difference in somebody's life. And again, it doesn't even have to be a parental figure. You can be a role model in somebody's life. You can be a positive male role model as a coach, as a mentor, as, whatever. Just being available to provide information and assistance when it's needed is sometimes all that is really necessary. Discipline and the typical male role model doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And there are all forms of discipline. It doesn't have to be physical. There can be other ways of discipling and pushing younger people on the right track. But this can happen not just with a father in the home. It can be a grandfather. It can be an uncle. It can be a good friend and a mentor, like I said. So take time tomorrow, as part of my final Whiskey Musings wrap up, take time tomorrow to honor those who have influenced your life, those male role models who have influenced your life. It doesn't matter what it is. Father's Day is labeled Father's Day as for fathers because that was the original intent. But I subscribe to the idea that this is beyond just that original intent. And especially in today's day and age, you never know where that positive male role model might come from. And so give them a chance to, say thank you. Use this as an occasion to open up your heart and open up your mind and to say, you know what? You may not know it, but you made a difference in my life. And that can go a long way towards healing some of the problems and some of the challenges that we have in our nation today. And that, my friends, is my final whiskey thought of the evening. So thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this episode, go ahead and click subscribe or follow or whatever. I mean, I'm on Rumble, I'm on Gab, I'm on YouTube, I have Twitter. Do me a quick favor. If you are listening on Spreaker, if you listen to this on Spreaker, please go ahead and just listen to the ads at the end. I put them at the end specifically for that reason, but I would appreciate you just go ahead and let them play. I did not pick them in any way. I just want to make that sure up front. So I have no idea what ads they are, but go ahead and just listen to them for me. And that way, I can kind of keep this going. For those of you that haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, check it out. It is Whiskey Musings, 2 words, on YouTube, and it has the logo in it. And then I also have a Rumble account too, where I post these videos. The YouTube obviously is the stream and it goes ahead and processes the video, but Rumble, I go ahead and post the video up there. So anyway, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everyone.